I never imagined a peaceful lakefront community could turn into a battlefield. But that's exactly what happened the moment the HOA decided to flex their power. I had lived in this neighborhood for years, always respectful, always cooperative. My home backed right onto the water, and the dock had been part of my property since day one. That little piece of the lake was my escape. Morning coffee by the water, fishing with my son, sunset kayaking with my wife, wasn't just a dock. It was part of our life. But that all changed when the HOA board suddenly claimed that my dock access violated community guidelines. Guidelines, I should mention, they'd just rewritten without notice. They sent me a notice saying my access was being revoked. No discussion, no vote. Just a lock on the gate and a warning not to trespass on what they now called shared space. The kicker: that dock was on my deed. I had legal rights to it. But they didn't care. They thought they could out-money and out-lawyer me into submission at first. I tried the polite route: emails, meetings, even brought in a mediator. But the HOA wasn't backing down. They made it personal, mocked me in board meetings, spread rumors around the neighborhood, and threatened fines every time I even stepped near the water. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules, it was about power. So I made a decision that would flip the whole situation upside down. While they were busy trying to take away my dock, I made a quiet deal behind the scenes, one that would give me control of something far bigger than they ever imagined. Because if they didn't want me near the water, I was going to make sure they couldn't get near it either. And that's when everything really started to unravel. The Marina sat quietly at the far end of the lake, kind of forgotten by most residents, but still fully operational. It was privately owned, a bit run down, but functional. And more importantly, it controlled nearly every dock slip and launch point on this side of the water. I had always known about it, even kept my eye on it out of curiosity. But once the HOA locked me out of my own dock, that curiosity turned into something much more serious. I started making calls, found out the owner had been looking to sell for years. And just like that, I saw my opportunity. Meanwhile, things at home were only getting worse. The HOA started fining me weekly for unauthorized landscaping and improper signage, all made-up rules that never existed before. They even tried to file a formal complaint saying my property disrupted the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood. Whatever that means, I knew they were just trying to wear me down until I gave up. But the more they pushed, the more determined I became. Neighbors who used to wave now looked the other way. A few whispered support, but no one wanted to challenge the board openly. That's how strong the HOA's grip had become. They weren't just running the neighborhood, they were ruling it. And the kicker: the same board members who shut me out of my dock were using the marina for their boats, quietly paying slip fees, launching kayaks, hosting little wine and cheese lake cruises like nothing had happened. They thought the marina was neutral ground, but they had no idea what was coming. While they plotted more ways to push me out, I was finalizing the paperwork that would change everything. The sale was nearly complete, a few signatures away from flipping the entire dynamic of the lake. And once I had the keys in my hand, the real game would begin by the time the papers were signed. I had one clear rule in mind: no current HOA board members would be allowed access to the marina. It was petty, maybe, but after months of being shut out of my own dock and harassed in my own neighborhood, it didn't feel petty at all. It felt necessary. I didn't make a big announcement. Just quietly updated the lease agreements, revised access permissions, and let the new policies speak for itself. No board member would be launching their boat here anymore. It didn't take long for word to get around. The first wave of complaints came within days. HOA President Mark showed up at the marina office red-faced, demanding to speak to the manager. He didn't know I was the new owner. He threw around phrases like community, privilege, and neighborhood rights, as if those meant something, outside of their little circle. When I finally stepped out from the back office and looked him in the eye, I swear he went pale. I just smiled and said, "We're private property now." Same as my dock. That moment should have felt like victory, but it only stirred the hornet's nest. The board called an emergency meeting. Suddenly, they were digging into zoning laws, trying to challenge the sale, even pressuring the city council to revoke my business permit. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. And desperate people make reckless choices. Meanwhile, the neighbors were starting to split into sides. Some cheered me on quietly, glad someone was finally standing up to the HOA's power games. Others, especially those with friends on the board, started spreading rumors saying I was trying to ruin the lake or that I was planning to jack up fees and block everyone from the water. Even my family felt the pressure. My wife got cold stares at the grocery store. My kids were left out of birthday invites. What started as a dock dispute had spiraled into something much bigger. And deep down, I knew this wasn't even close to over. The tension around the lake was reaching a boiling point. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. The HOA board wasn't backing down, and neither was I. They started holding secret meeting swans they didn't post on the community bulletin, like they were supposed to. I knew because one of my neighbors, who still believed in fairness, slipped me copies of the agenda. They were planning to push a new bylaw through, one that would let them reclaim community shoreline through legal maneuvering. In other words, they wanted to try to take my marina now too. At the same time, I started noticing strange things happening. My mailbox was knocked off its post. Someone slashed one of my tires in the middle of the night. We even found a dead fish thrown onto our porch, like some childish intimidation move. I didn't have proof it was them, but I had a gut feeling the board or someone loyal to them was behind it. They were trying to scare me, isolate me, push me into folding. But I wasn't alone anymore. A quiet resistance was building. More neighbors started reaching out, sharing their own stories. One man, Tom, told me how the HOA fined him $500 for having the wrong shade of mulch. Another woman had been denied permission to build a ramp for her elderly mother. These weren't just small power plays, they were control tactics. People had been scared for so long, they forgot what it felt like to push back. Behind the scenes, I started putting together a case. Every fine, every threat, every shady vote. I was documenting everything. I wasn't just going to fight them. On neighborhood gossip, I was building something bigger. Something legal, something they wouldn't see coming. Then, just as things reached their peak, I got a letter. Certified from the HOA's legal team. A sans-desist order demanding I revoke the new Marina Policesor face court. It was clear. This wasn't just a feud anymore. It was war. And the next move was mine. I stared at the cease and desist letter for a long time. Not because I was afraid, but because something about it felt off. The language was aggressive, too aggressive for a neighborhood dispute. They weren't just threatening a lawsuit over the marina policies. They were accusing me of violating environmental codes, misuse of commercial space, and even intentional disruption of community welfare. It read like they were trying to bury me in legal mess I'd never crawl out of. But here's the twist. They weren't acting alone. A week after the letter arrived, I got a knock at the door from a local reporter. She said she'd been following whispers about shady dealings involving our HOA. I invited her in, and what she told me turned everything upside down. Apparently, several HOA board members had financial interests tied to a proposed luxury development on the other side of the lake. But the only problem, the plans depended on acquiring shoreline access through the Marina My Marina suddenly. It all made sense. This wasn't just personal revenge for me kicking them out. This was about money. Big money. They weren't trying to preserve community values like they claimed. They were trying to flip our quiet lake into a profit machine, and my ownership stood in their way. The new bylaw push, the threats. The legal letter zit was all part of a bigger strategy to force me out. I felt a mix of fury and clarity. They had underestimated me from the start. They thought I was just some angry homeowner making a statement. But now I had the truth. And I had witnesses, neighbors, old meeting records. Even whispers of backdoor deals with city officials. The stakes had just shot up higher than I ever expected. This wasn't just about dock access anymore. This was about exposing a deeper corruption that could tear the whole HOA structure apart. But the moment I decided to fight back publicly, everything around me changed. My phones started glitching. My emails got hacked. Someone was watching. And the next move wouldn't just decide the future of the Marina. I could decide everything. I knew I had one shot to bring everything to light before they buried me in paperwork and court threats. So I worked with a reporter and a quiet handful of neighbors who were just as fed up as I was. We organized a public town hall, not run by the HOA, but by the community itself. We rented space at the local library, sent out invites, and recorded everything. I brought every document I had: the Marina ownership, the rewritten HOA guidelines, emails between board members, and even a leaked memo showing their ties to the developer. It was all there in black and white. When the night of the meeting came, I didn't know what to expect. Maybe 10 people, maybe none. But the room was packed. Dozens of neighbors showed up, some angry, some curious, many just tired of the secrecy. I walked them through everything. I didn't yell, I didn't blame. I just showed them the facts. And when the reporter backed me up with her own findings, the room went dead silent. You could feel the shock settle in as the truth sank in. The very next morning, 3 board members resigned. No statements, no apologies, just gone. The HOA tried to downplay it, saying they were stepping away for personal reasons. But the community wasn't buying it anymore. People started organizing votes to replace the rest of the board. The development project was pulled from city review, and my cease and desist dropped without explanation. I thought that was the end of it. But 2 weeks later, I got another letter, this time anonymous. Inside was a single photo: the Marina at night, taken from the water, with a red X drawn over my office window. No words, just the image. So yeah, I won the battle. I kept the dock, the Marina, and exposed the corruption. But part of me wonders if the fight's really over, or if someone's just waiting for their next move. After that photo showed up, I tightened security around the Marina, installed cameras, motion lights, and made sure everything was legally documented and protected. But truthfully, nothing else happened. Maybe it was just a scare tactic. One last jab from someone who couldn't accept that their grip had slipped. Whatever it was, it didn't change the outcome. The HOA lost control. The shady development deal collapsed, and the community slowly started breathing again. Over the next few months, things settled. A new board was elected, this time with open voting and full transparency. They rolled back the bogus fines, listened to homeowners, and even admitted the HOA had gone too far. People who once avoided eye contact now stopped by the Marina to chat or ask for advice. I didn't want to be a local hero or anything, but I knew I'd helped shift the balance of power back to the people who actually lived here. My family and I got our peace back. Mornings on the dock became peaceful again, no threats, no notes, just water and silence. My wife even started hosting small kayak meets, and my kids made new friends who didn't care about the past drama. The Marina turned into more than worn. A statement tit became a place for real community. Looking back, the fight wasn't really about a dock or water access. It was about standing up when something feels wrong, even if you're standing alone at first. HOAs, when run right, can protect a neighborhood, But when power gets unchecked, people get hurt. I just happened to be the one who pushed back at the right time. And in the end, I didn't just get my dock back, I helped a neighborhood remember who it really belongs to. The people, not the board, not the politics, just the people.